What's up? Today I want to do the 1 week later for the Weeknd Dawn FM. I just want to kind of go over a quick review of it and just kind of talk about some of my favorite moments on it. So I just want to start by saying the Weeknd is one of my favorite artists. I've loved almost everything that he's dropped. Definitely some more than others. Probably my least favorite project by him would be Starboy. Well, I think it's enjoyable from a pop standpoint. It doesn't kind of hit the same way that Trilogy does or Kissland does. And in a lot of ways, I feel like Dawn FM was Starboy 2.0. He has this way of kind of giving his original fans a project, then releasing a more mainstream one. I think After Hours is kind of without a doubt my top Weeknd album. I love it. I still listen to it weekly. When he released Take My Breath Away, the lead single off Dawn FM, I wasn't in love with it. I thought it was decent, but it didn't touch Blinding Lights or Heartless or even Save Your Tears as far as singles go. And honestly, I didn't really expect him to drop so soon. He was tweeting about Dawn FM in, I believe it was like August. It was pretty far back. And he even referenced the Dawn on Hurricane by Kanye. But I was expecting him to maybe drop later in the year, and I think that he was going to drop like a single around this time. But of course, he did drop the album. The overall narrative of it, which is brought to us by Jim Carrey, was really cool, really enjoyable. I loved hearing his voice in the intro and the outro, especially the poem on the outro. That was a standout moment for me. Every Angel is Terrifying was really cool as well. You can kind of hear the influence of the Safdie brothers, and one of them, I believe, even makes an appearance on the track. The Weeknd is also credited as a producer on a lot of the songs. So I believe he kind of helped build the sonic world for this album. And I think that the tracks just really flow very nicely together. Take My Breath Away worked much better in the context of the album, especially with the outro of How Do I Make You Love Me. It kind of bleeds into the extended cut of Take My Breath Away very, very well. Is There Someone Else into Starry-Eyed felt like one of those Weeknd really long tracks that he's done, like Kissland or even After Hours, where it sounds like it's a combination of two different tracks, obviously, because this one was. I can remember the first time I heard it, I didn't really realize that it had switched to another song. I felt like it was just a beat switch. The one thing I'm really happy about this album is that culturally, I think in pop, albums have been dying. Right now, more than ever, singles are huge, and I'm glad that The Weeknd's still releasing albums and he's still focusing on creating a cohesive sounding project with an overarching story. On Gasoline, I loved the almost New Order 80s vocals on it. At first, I thought it was a feature because I never heard him sound like that. While it's not a track I really return to all that much on its own, I respect him for beginning the record that way. It helped set up my expectations for the rest of the album. A Tale from Quincy with Quincy Jones was actually very interesting, and obviously not something I listen to on its own either, but I don't skip it when it comes on. That and the following track, Out of Time, reminded me a lot of Daft Punk's Random Access Memories, just kind of like the bass line on them and the 80s sound to them. Here We Go Again with Tyler was another standout for me, talking about celebrating success. And his flow reminded me a lot of Tell Your Friends from Beauty Behind the Madness, and just kind of the rapping, the effortless flow to it. The McAllen shots, Till It Burns Throats was cool. Still celebrating the Super Bowls. I kind of love just how the track flowed together. When Tyler came in, I loved how his voice complemented the Weeknd's. However, him ending with saying, "You gonna sign this prenup" multiple times kind of almost ruined it for me. I thought that he could have added something extra to that, but you know, it is what it is. I also really liked Less Than Zero. The simple guitar with the poppy sounding vocals was a nice breath of fresh air to kind of cap off the album. So I hope that that becomes a single in the future. Same with Out of Time. Now, the times the album lost me was during the Wayne feature on I Heard You Were Married and Sacrifice. I Heard You Were Married took me back to the club tracks of the early 2010s in all the wrong ways. Wayne's verse was typical boring pop feature Wayne, and the Weeknd's lyrics were boring and uninspired. Sacrifice was also just boring, and I wish that the Weeknd brought like a different flow to that song, because it just, I don't know, it just didn't do anything for me. Overall, I think it's a middle of the pack album. It doesn't hit the same way After Hours did, but I'd still put it a little bit above Starboy. Like I said, I'm happy he chose to make a cohesive sounding album, and I love the radio theme to it. If he cut the track list by 4 or 5 songs and maybe took more risks similar to what he did on Gasoline, I believe this would be a much better album to me personally. At the moment, just kind of going over everything, I've just kind of rated it a 6.5 currently. I gave the production an 8 out of 10, the lyrics a 5 out of 10, the melodies on it a 7 out of 10. The album cover, I'm going to kind of, I have it at a 4 out of 10, but I think that it could age a little bit better depending on what he does with the next album. Because according to him, this is part of a trilogy. So I don't necessarily know what the overall, like, if there is an overall arching narrative. If there is one, and the older look for whatever reason is better explained later on, then I'm on board. But at the moment, I don't really know that much about it. So just taking it as it is, I just have it at a 4 out of 10. The features, not including like Jim Carrey or Quincy Jones, if we're just talking about Tyler and Lil Wayne, a 3 out of 10. Nothing too special, nothing too memorable. I would have probably liked a couple more features, maybe something like weirder, just some collaborations that we wouldn't have expected. But it is what it is. I was happy that there was a lot of solo songs too. Just, it would have been nice to have something break up the monotony of the album in some cases. But yeah, overall, 6.5, decent album. I'm excited with whatever he's going to release as the third album in the trilogy. But that's 1 week later, and thanks for watching.